I am excited to have today with you. This is a fun class. We're going to talk today about coming into the holiday season and what is ahead of you as you consider your holidays, as you consider how you prepare for your holidays. So here we are starting this conversation in the first week of October. And really towards the end of the month, we start getting into Halloween and then Thanksgiving and then Christmas and New Year's and on into the next year. And for a lot of people in the transformation world, for a lot of us in the transformation world, this is a busy time. It's a really busy time. So I want to start this morning by inviting you to just take a minute and close your eyes and just settle into the here and now. To feel your feet on the ground, feel your body in the chair, and to just recognize that there is a stillness about life coming in. And I just invite you to see if you can find a place for that stillness in the busyness of your world. You can just find a place in your body where you can recognize a bit of stillness. And just put your attention there, wherever that is. Allow your attention to travel to that place and allow yourself to take 3 deep breaths from right there, in through your nose and out through your mouth. When you're ready, just gently open your eyes. This is my favorite time of the year for lots of reasons, but mostly because this is a time that we are walking on our northern hemisphere while it's releasing. You know, things are releasing and things are still. There is a slower amount of growth, even if you happen to be in a place where you don't get snow and you don't see the seasons visibly change. The planet has tipped differently. The sun is at a different point. It pulls differently against life. And it doesn't pull as fast. Things don't grow as fast. You don't have to mow your lawn so often. Things are slower. For most of us in this business, it's a time that feels like we're heading into the busy season. From somewhere toward the end of this month until Easter, is that like just kind of one thing after another? We have a lot to do as we move through helping people through the holidays. And I'm hoping that today we can think about how we might do the holidays a little differently. So planning for the holidays is what we're facing right now. And you may not have jumped right into that in your mind because we're early in October, so you may not quite be thinking about it. But I want to move you into consideration for it a little bit early. And I want to ask you, will you do the same thing this year that you always do? And you can interpret that question any way you want. That could be, will you do the same rush through your holidays? Or it could be, will you do the same services you always do? It could be, will you make time for yourself during these holidays? Maybe you've done that in the past. And why? I just want to invite you to consider how you want to experience the holiday season ahead. How do you want to experience this? Are you intentional about your experience of it? I know that you're incredibly intentional about the experience that everyone else is having, because this is a very important time to us. And we are very intentional going through the holiday season. This is an opportunity before you're in the wild flow to think about what you would like to do and whether or not your holiday season needs to be incredibly complicated or not. So these are questions to ask yourself. And we can talk about some of these when we come back for our Q&A in 2 weeks. But for now, they're for your contemplation. First is, do the holidays excite you? Are you enthused and excited about moving into the holidays, or do you feel worn out just thinking about them? Question, have you considered that you are in charge of your holiday experience? That you are in charge not only of their holiday experience, but you are in charge of your holiday experience, and that your holiday experience is going to impact their holiday experience. And finally, how can you make the holiday season more meaningful and less exhausting? How can you make the holiday season more meaningful and less exhausting? These are things I hope you'll be prompted to give some thought to today. Holidays are important for lots of reasons to us. They're obviously the time that we teach some of the most important foundational teachings that our theology is based on. But they're important for more than theological reasons. Holidays are important because they're a natural time for people to come together. This kind of winter holiday sweep, or fall into winter and New Year holiday sweep, is a time when people come back together, and that's not by accident. It happens because when it's bright and warm and sunny and fun to be outside, people go outside and they ride their bikes and they go camping and they go hiking and they go visit their friends, and they do all the things that take them out into the world. And when this season comes around and it starts to get chilly again, this is a time that for a very long time, people have come close. We've gathered around our hearths. We've gathered as community to share the harvest that we gathered. When our agrarian ancestors took in the harvest, you can't live just on zucchini. They traded zucchini for potatoes and corn and all of that stuff so that they had a mixture of food. So people came together at this time of year to begin telling their stories about their adventures during the warm season. Where did you go? What did you learn? What did you bring back? What have you grown in your life in the season of growth? So now as we start to move into the harvest season, what have you grown in your life? What are you bringing into the holiday season for your community? What have you gained and learned and grown that will nourish your community that's different than what you had before? This is the time to think about that, because this is the time to share your stories. This is the time to look for people to naturally want to be together again, to naturally want to come in. So our holiday traditions feel comforting. They feel familiar. They bring people back to a steady place in life. Hi, Robert, I see you. Welcome in. We're talking about holidays this morning. So these are things that people are looking for. The holiday season helps us to be better humans. How is that? Because we're really good humans when we're listening and sharing stories and helping each other. These are really the things that we do in the holiday season. It's why we do so much, we give so much during this time of year. And an argument can be made that we want to spread out that giving all across the year. An argument can be made that that's a good thing. And it's natural this time of year for us to gather and to share and to tell our stories. And so it's going to happen more easily. For a lot of people, this is a time of grief. The time we're in right now is a time of grief, and you want to be aware of that. You are needed more right now than any other time of the year. So I want you to consider that this is the time of year that everything in the stores is centered around skeletons and things ending and monsters and things that go boo in the night and all of that. And there's no way to move through life without encountering things that make us think about loss, that we have lost people this year, that we have lost things and time and ways of life in the last year. And that people like to mask that in everything being great. This celebration that we're coming to at the end of the month was originally a celebration designed to invite us to live into the fact that loss is part of life. And we have taken it and translated it into something that is a huge celebration of joy. We're going to costume up. We're going to give kids to the candy. Give kids candy. We're going to have a great time out on the street, and it's going to be fun. But underneath that, there's something starting to bubble up. And if you don't stop now and pay attention to what's bubbling up, this grief that people are starting to have triggered is going to carry all the way through the holiday season. If you stop at this time and give some attention to what is happening for people and visit a little bit into the season of death and grief and how natural that is, you will make the Christmas season easier for people because they will have been in the grief earlier. It's very hard to grieve in the holiday season, in the Christmas, specifically in the Christmas season, which is all about joy. And generally, how we approach this theologically, or theologically is not the right word, how we approach this in our church culture is we do a blue Christmas ceremony sometime around Christmas time and help people to grieve a little bit and then go on with the season of joy. And so what I'm inviting you to consider is that if you start spending a little time talking about loss now, you really will shift the energy for a lot of people as they move in and through the rest of the holiday season. So how can you do that? What do you have to offer? First of all, you have a safe space for grief. And you have a place that isn't out on the street in the grocery store where the pumpkins and skeletons are. You have a safe place and a safe time to just talk about the fact that there are losses every year and that every season of growth comes to an end. You have the opportunity as you move forward to take people from understanding grief and being present to it to a state of gratitude, which is an important transition, isn't it? When we can grieve and honor what the loss is and be grateful for what was brought into our lives. So you can move people, if you do this thoughtfully, from grief into gratitude for everything they gained from those things that have gone. And then you can move them into the holiday season, into a time of hope and into a time of vision for the next year. You have memorable stories to create a foundation for this process. But I'm hoping that what happens for you as you contemplate over the next few weeks what we talk about today is that you begin to see that these things are one continuous thread, that these things are not separate individual events, but there is a process that you are inviting your community to move through that is important. It's not going to do at the core level healing that people who are really, really struggling need. For that, they need to go find that professional support. But it is going to take them through and give them some tools to move from the season of harvest into the season of endings, into gratitude, into hope and vision for the next year. And that is a really important process. So these are not individual things. This is a continuous process that you're going into. And I didn't step farther into the resurrection experience that we go through at Easter, but it certainly is a continued thread, isn't it? That we are envisioning our way not only through hope and into something new, but into what is beyond our imagination. What happens in the world of miracles when we see ourselves as eternal beings. So there really is continuity between these things. In October, we are in the season of grief and the season of honor. This is a season to recognize ancestors and losses and loved ones. And there are stories to tell, like I told you at the beginning, about how the earth is slowing down. And all around us, we're seeing a natural process of release. We're seeing leaves fall from the trees. We're seeing the grass slow down and begin to come to stillness. And it's starting to cool down. We're wanting to wrap a blanket around us, to drink a little warm tea. It's starting. That season is starting. I want to invite you to consider a really simple exercise that you can do in your community that takes almost no effort on your part, but can be incredibly important. And that is to find a place in your sanctuary where you can either put a table or a small bookcase, any place where you could set pictures. And I want to invite you to consider having your community bring pictures of those who are ancestors to them or those they have lost. So for me, this is something we did for 12 years. Here's what I learned. When people know that every year they have a time in their sanctuary to honor the people that they lost, they're not afraid of forgetting to grieve. So if you've ever been through grief with someone, one of the things that often happens is that people are afraid that if they stop grieving, they're going to stop remembering to grieve. They're going to stop. It's going to go away. They're going to forget somehow a person's voice, the things they loved about them, all of that. So when you create a regular, reliable time for your community to have a space for acknowledging those who have gone, we never stop grieving our mothers and fathers, do we? We never stop grieving some of the big losses in our lives. And we also have an opportunity here to honor our ancestors who are important to who we are and the stories of our ancestors. And this process invites people to go back to fellowship and share the stories of their ancestors, share the stories of their loved ones. So it's as simple as this. Find a place in your sanctuary where you can put up tables, put a nice tablecloth on, or bookshelf, or sometimes I've done it along the front edge of the platform, and invite people to bring their pictures. And at the beginning of your service, simply invite them to walk up in the first few minutes, have your music director play a little music and say something like, if you brought memories that you would like to have the community be witness to, memories of ancestors or lost ones, people you've loved who've passed on, please come up now and set your items on the altar. Let them put them up there, leave them there for the month. People will come up and look. Invite them when you talk to them about this process to share their stories. I have learned that not everybody has a picture of the people that they love. So I keep a basket on the front platform. And there's notebook paper in the back, in the seat back pockets. So people can write the names of a loved one or write a note to a loved one and put it in a basket up on that platform. And each Sunday we take just a minute for a moment of silence to honor our ancestors and those we've lost in the last year. This is a very, very, very simple process. It doesn't stop you from doing any of the other things that you would do on Sunday. It is incredibly meaningful to people to have the opportunity to honor their ancestors, to honor those that have passed in the year before. And on the last week of the month, I make sure, I always ask people, please put your names on the back so we know who things belong to. At the last week of the month, the last Sunday of the month, I invite people to come up and pick up their stuff. If they are on screen, if you're doing a hybrid service and they're on screen, you can invite people to just take that moment and hold their picture up. Or if they know how, they can replace their picture on Zoom with their ancestor's picture and go off camera and the picture will come up. So there are lots of ways to involve people. If they want to write, they can write the name of the person they're honoring in the chat box so that you can see. And then invite them to have conversation during the time that they're in fellowship about who they've lost this year. Make it open and free to talk about and safe, because we get 3 days off of work when we lose somebody. And then we have to jump back into our life. And somehow we have this belief that we should be able to do that really quickly and easily. And people, I promise you, have been carrying grief all year. This is a really good time to steer some of your lessons around the processing of grief, around what we grieve as we move through life and how to grieve. And we do that. We do a lot of good by making grief a public conversation and normalizing it, because it is one of the most normal things we're ever going to experience, isn't it? So you can start here. This is a very easy thing for you. It takes only a little bit of work. People will leave a few things behind. We put a box in the office and we put an announcement in the bulletin and say, hey, if you didn't pick up your pictures, here are the ones that we have, come and get them. I've never had pictures lost. They have always remained and we have always been able to get them back home. So you might start your October with something like this. This is easy. And it involves very little work from you and invites you also to think about your own ancestors and who you've lost, and to be present to your deep heart, because in the holiday season, our own deep hearts get lost. So it's an opportunity for you to think about that as well. And losses are not always the losses of people. They can be the losses of pets. They can be the losses of jobs, the losses of marriage. They can be the loss of a teenager who went off to college. This is a time to honor grief and give it a very wide definition so that people can be present to it and talk about it. The darker the night, the brighter the stars, the deeper the grief, the closer is God. This is such a powerful, powerful quote. The deeper people are in grief, the more cracked open they are, the more they receive the messages that we give them about the holy. So going into this is an opportunity to step deeper with your community and really show them the resources that the holy offers them through their union and oneness with that energy. It's a really, really good time and a powerful time for you as a minister to do really good work. Powerful time for you, whether you're a minister, board member, LUT, being present to people is really important. In November, we move from that time of acknowledging loss to acknowledging the final harvest or the final end of year. Like, what am I really grateful for this last year? What has really happened for me in the last year? Another simple thing that you can do to help acknowledge grief is create a gratitude jar or a gratitude bowl, something in your lobby, and invite people to place their notes in it each week. And then you're going to use those notes. You're going to take those notes and turn them into social media posts, turn them into messages that you share on Sunday. Here are just 4 or 5 things. I'm not going to give any names, but here are 4 or 5 things people are grateful for this week. you're going to, because it feels good, doesn't it? When somebody goes, oh, I wrote that. Oh, I'm so glad they used that. That was mine. It makes them see that you're paying attention. It gives you great insight into what your people love about your community and about their life. And it brings you into a time when gratitude is the natural subject, where you're actually engaging them in a gratitude practice. You can invite them to journal their gratitude. You can gather a month's worth of memes now that are all about gratitude and focus your online presence to gratitude. But I promise you, one of the fringe benefits will be they'll recognize over and over again how grateful they are for you, and how grateful they are for your community, and how grateful they are for this spiritual foundation. And now I've given them a place to grieve, and also given them an invitation to remember what they were honoring last month as grief, and move into being grateful. What did you learn from the people, from the situations, from the changes in your life that you can now move into gratitude around? And again, you will have some people who will need support to do this. They would need support anytime they're moving from grief into gratitude. But for people who are, for the majority of your people, they will be able to move on the surface of this in a powerful way. And again, this is a relatively easy thing for you to do. People online can put their gratitude in the box, in the chat box. You can grab those. You can still use them for memes. People in your congregation can drop their notes of gratitude. It will work best if you actually take a pause. And again, paper in front of them in your sanctuary, take a pause and ask them to write right then what they're grateful for, and then put it in the jar in the lobby when they leave. Because if you create the moment for it, they will do it. If you don't create the moment for it, they'll walk past the jar and forget to do it. So it's valuable to make it a part of your 4 Sundays. Take a minute, write it down now. Notice what you're grateful for. Write it in the chat box. Let's really put our focus in understanding gratitude. And then, of course, it's a great time to teach about gratitude. It's a really wonderful time. It's also a really good time to teach about the Sabbath understanding of taking stillness, of creating stillness in your life, because they're about to bridge into the holiday season where everything in our culture says, rush, hustle, bustle. We got a lot to do. When are we going to go shopping? It's going to be crazy in the stores. That's a mental state of being. And we don't have to play. We can enter that state differently. We can enter that state with gratitude, with ease, with grace, if we think about it earlier than the last minute. So you can help them move into the holiday season feeling closer to each other and closer to their own hearts, if you give some focus on what it is to be in the season of quiet, in the time when we're introspective. And that's where we are in winter. Things stop growing. It's a time that we really naturally kind of turn inward. It happens for most people that way. So invite them to consider that, to consider how they will bring deep meaning and less exhaustion to their holiday season. If you start that in the season of gratitude, it will be easier for them to move into it as you get into December. Let gratitude be the pillow upon which you kneel to say your nightly prayer. This is, again, a favorite quote of mine. The visual of it, to allow gratitude to be the pillow upon which you say good night, the place that you end your day. It's valuable, if you have a favorite quote on these subjects, to come back to it over and over and over again through the month. Give them something that is a powerful thought that they can hitch their wagon to the whole month long, and let them come back to it. This speaks to the practice of ending your day in gratitude, which all of us have done at one time or another. We've all engaged in this practice, and every one of us here can absolutely nod our heads and know that ending your day in gratitude changes your next day. So it's a really good time to find a way to say that. Moving into December, again, in an easy way that involves your community in your practice, that gets your community involved, I invite you to consider, and this is a project that you can have your youth do early, or you could have your women's group do. You could have really, your board could do it, anyone could do it, but you're gonna take some paper and make paper ornaments. They can be just a square with a hole punch and a piece of string cut through. Or if you do it with your kids, they can decorate the outside. You could do it with a stamp and put a decoration on the outside, but take your piece of paper and fold it so that it's in half. So a person can write on the inside without it being visible to everybody else. Fold it in half, punch a hole in it, put a string in it, let them decorate it, whether it's the people who write or your kids or the group that makes them. Make a couple hundred of them, they'll carry over into the next year. And invite people to write their prayer for the world or for their family or for whatever they want to have prayed over on that piece of paper, and use that to decorate your sanctuary Christmas tree. Let them take those and hang them and engage people in a process of prayer that each time they come to the tree, they will stop for a moment and affirm that the prayers on that tree are answered. You can do that as part of your service. You can put your tree. I have put my tree up actually on the platform and started the service every Sunday having people come up and hang their ornaments. Doesn't take very long, but it's a meaningful process and a tangible process for them. And they bring their prayers up, and the entire community prays for everything on the tree, just with an affirmation. And you can come up with a simple affirmation for that, so that everybody is affirming and they know they have the power of the community behind their prayers. And then at the end of your holiday season, gather all those prayers, put them in an envelope, send them to Silent Unity to go in the Unity Chapel, where they'll be prayed over for another 30 days. Because they're prayers, right? We want to do something sacred with them when we're done, when we're finished in the sanctuary. And it feels good to know as a member of our community that my prayer has now gone to Silent Unity and it's being prayed for more. We pray in hope. We pray in affirmation of life being different. And this time of the year is a time when people have a lot going on. They're worried about money. They're worried about whether they got the right gift for someone that's very important to them. They're missing family members they can't be with. They're contemplating their life. And they're separated out, or they're all together and they're worried about everybody coming together and it being a bad holiday. And there are lots of things that really are difficult at this time, and prayer is a great answer. And this is a great time for you to teach about affirmative prayer, and that give them a prayer that they can use to affirm that all is as it should be. However you want to say that, however feels right, you know what's going on in your community. You can also invite them to begin their prayers for the next year for the community. To begin, remember, this is going to go in January. All these prayers are going to be in the sanctuary at Silent Unity, being prayed over. So this is a good time to put in also your prayers for the community as we go forward in our next year and all the things that come to them. If you want to, you can invite them to do something like I've had them put a star on the front. Put a star on the front if it's okay to share your prayer. I will, as the minister, read the prayers every week. I will take a moment and read the prayers and do my own prayer over all of your intentions. And if there's something that you are okay with me reading out loud the next week, just put a star on the outside and I'll know that it's okay. And again, we don't have to say whose name it is unless someone wants to, but you can just say, someone in our community is praying for this. Let's take a moment and affirm that it's so. And it makes it very personal. And it also gives them a reason, like, are you going to read my prayer? I put my star on it. Will you read it? Because there's power in hearing your prayer spoken through someone who you honor as a spiritual teacher. There's power. There's a huge gift in that. This, again, takes a small amount of work and is an incredibly meaningful process. It takes the whole concept of a Christmas tree in your lobby or on your platform to something entirely different than just being the place you put the ornaments every year and the place, pretty lights. It makes it an active part of your community, an active engagement in your spiritual practice. The very least you can do in your life is to figure out what you hope for. And the most you can do is live inside that hope, not admire it from a distance, but live right in it, under your roof, under its roof. This invitation to you is to invite your community to live in its hope, to be in a prayer practice for an entire 30-day period, to actually make it part of what you're doing rather than part of what you're talking about. And then we move into January and White Stone ceremony and our the idea of visioning the next year. If you have worked with me in the past, you know that I don't believe we should make New Year's resolutions because we're still in winter and there's not a lot of energy for it. I think those come later in the year, March, April, when the sun is bright and we're ready to put our energy into creating something. But I do believe that in the winter is a dream time. It's a time of thinking about the dreaming process that we live in and to actually dream into what we want to create. It's the darker time of the year. It's a natural time. We nap more, we're quieter. We want to rest. And in the rest, Spirit has the opportunity to engage our imagination. We have the opportunity to bring through something new. So January is a great time. A lot of people do vision boarding with their community and have their community make their own vision board, have their people make their own vision board. I want to invite you to look and see, have you got a wall or a bulletin board in your building where you can put pictures up, where you could create a vision board and have people cut out images and bring them and put them on the board, so that you build out a community vision for the next year, something that people can see when they come through, something you can take pictures of, something you can take pieces of pictures of, and something you can contribute to and your staff can contribute to that begins to image rather than talk about what you're creating in the new year. Because we take in images differently than we take in words. We are first people of sight. Most people respond first to what they see. And the things that don't have words attached, that are images, tell us something that touches our heart. It generally evokes a feeling from us of something. We can become very, very oriented towards the words of what we do, as opposed to giving them something that inspires them on a different level, that inspires and moves their soul and their heart. And this is the reason why art is so important in the world, because visual art stimulates us in different ways than words. Music stimulates us in different ways than words. This is an opportunity to use a visual and have people have fun. Just if you notice something in a magazine, if you have a picture you want to put up here, let's create a picture of what we're going to do in the next year, of how it feels to be part of this community in the forthcoming year. Again, if people are not coming into your building, they can still participate. They can send the picture to your administrator. Your administrator can print it out and put it on the board. So there's a way for everybody to play. And by taking pictures and posting those back on your social media, people who are not in the building still get to see the development, the shift, and the change. And it's an opportunity for you. And you can leave it in place as long as it feels powerful for your community. When it feels like it's done its job, you can take it down. But January is a great time to talk about the power of your community. It's a time a lot of us talk about the Fillmores and the foundational teachings that we come out of. So it's a natural way to speak from the richness of where we started right into the richness of who we are. And again, this is a talking point for you. This is not a huge job. This is a talking point for you that your staff and your community can actually create. And if you follow something like this, whether it's these particular steps or something similar, you can create engagement with your community completely through the holiday season, things for them to be involved in and be engaged in, and not rely on you to create for them. And that's going to make your holiday season easier. This is a really important thing for you guys, because what heats up that needs your attention during the holiday season is pastoral counseling. People need you. And it's one of the reasons that we get so stressed is because they need us, and Sunday morning needs us, and the holiday things we're doing need us. All of that, there's lots. This is also a good time, going October, November, December, January. This is a really good time for book study. Because again, people are introspective. We're more likely to sit inside. And we now have Zoom for people who don't want to be in the same room. This is a really good time if you have someone who can lead a book study for you. It's another really good way to keep the teaching energy strong when you know you have to pull yourself into more pastoral availability. So something to think about. And that's why we're doing it at the beginning. We're talking about all of this the beginning of October, guys, because this flow is coming and it's going to be here pretty quick. Blessed is the season which engages the whole world in a conspiracy of love. So when I started in ministry, I asked a good friend who had been in ministry for about a decade what he could tell me, what he had learned, and what he could tell me to launch into my ministerial career. And it was the most important piece of advice I ever got about ministry. And it was just this simple sentence: all anybody ever really wants is to feel loved. All anybody ever really wants is to feel loved. This is a season when we're talking about love in all of its different forms. Love of those we've lost, love and gratitude, love and hope, love and envisioning. Love is the undercurrent of this entire season, and it gets lost for us because we are so often moving so quickly that we don't actually consider, how can I show more love to the people around me at this time? This is a tender time, these next few months for people. Very tender time. Grief, Thanksgiving, being without people, the holiday season. We're exhausted as a culture right now. People are tired, and the holiday season feels very pushed for us most years in our American culture. So how can we make it easier, and how can we make it more meaningful and less exhausting for us and for the people we serve. We can do that by engaging in the concept that this is a love-based holiday, the whole season, and that our primary job during this season is to love people through this process, to simply be in our hearts with them. Because sometimes the one hug you give, the one kind word you speak, the simple place that you are being present to someone is the thing they need more than anything else this time of year. So I'll leave that with you to think about. We have about 10 minutes. I'd love to hear comments, questions, or other things that you do during the holiday season that feel like they might want to be shared right now. Bill.
I'll go first. This is on a personal basis, not speaking for Unity Fort Worth, but at about age 45, Juanita and I realized just what you're talking about. Is this total stress and chaos of Christmas. And Juanita being originally from Thailand, but Christian from Thailand and Buddhist mixed, but we made a pact to own. We found the competition to buy gifts for each other to be quite stressful. And so we simplified that by saying we each are going to buy each other one gift not to exceed $50. And this was, I think we were about 45 years old then, or well beyond that now. But in doing that, we took a lot of stress off on a personal front, off the need to go. We went shopping and did all that and some things for the kids, but we put that limit on it. And that has continued to this day. And that did lower the stress level considerably.
Thanks, Bill. Anything else you'd like to share? How are you feeling getting ready to go into your holiday season? And we can stop the recording here. If there's nothing else on this that we want to share, we'll go ahead and stop the recording and say thank you for being with us and go into some personal conversation.